We are live. What's up, everybody? You got the MP Nation podcast. It's not the first one, but it's the first one that's this legit.
That's right.
We got my man Tom Ryan, Ohio State wrestling coach, national champion today, which is awesome. Social media director Josh Hatchett, and co-owner of the Old School Gym, my best friend Dustin Myers. So we are here live at the MP Nation headquarters in Columbus, Ohio, and we're excited to talk to my man Tom Ryan today. So how we doing, Coach?
Great. Good to be here.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so we just want to go over a little bit of bio and history on you. So tell me, where you're from, where you grew up, and how'd you become such a badass?
Well, I don't know about that. So, grew up on Long Island, New York.
New Yorker.
Yeah, New Yorker.
Okay.
Yeah, Long Island, New York. Got into wrestling at 7th grade. The vision for me, the plan was always to be an NBA star.
No.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And you're laughing because I'm like 5'8", and I
This
can't
is
jump.
awesome. I would have never guessed you'd said that.
It's quite a transition from basketball to wrestling.
Yeah.
I love where this is going already.
Yeah, that was, as a young kid, it was basketball. CYO basketball was,
Wow.
12 to 15 points a game. I was a shooting guard. And then
He was a hacker.
Dude, this is
Don't let
awesome. This is awesome.
Don't let him fool you. He was a pro hacker.
And then, I could foul like nobody else. I mean, that was Mr. O'Leary in 7th grade. All the elementary schools come together.
Yeah.
And so now you realize, for me, it was like the first time it's real life. There's more people in the world than the small elementary school that I was playing with. So you get to junior high, and all these kids are trying out, and like maybe 12 guys made the team. And back then, when you got cut from a team, there was no explanation.
Yeah.
It was just you went to the locker room, you looked on the wall, and you didn't see your name. You're like, "What's up, man?" What?
Yeah.
So I go to see Mr. O'Leary after trying. Mr. O'Leary, my name's on the wall. you must have forgot. He goes, "Tom, come on, man. You foul. You can't shoot."
You're really a wrestler,
He goes,
obviously.
Yeah, exactly. And he goes, "Hey, you're going to try wrestling." So, Garth
He did
Brooks
you a
said it
favor.
best. Yeah, unanswered prayers, right? So
Wow.
there it was. So
That is awesome.
Yeah, started wrestling in 7th grade, and I've thanked Mr. O'Leary many times since for being honest about my basketball skills.
What was the wrestling kind of environment like, at that time? Obviously, it's grown a great deal, to where it is today. What was it like then?
Yeah, Wantagh, the school that I grew up in, we had a really good, junior high coach who just kept it fun, Mr. Pepe. His name was Al Pepe. And he was just a great guy. My brother started wrestling in 9th grade. So my brother, after I got cut from basketball, he also was a tremendous influence for me. He's like, "Listen, you're gonna wrestle." And I remember thinking, there's no way I'm wrestling. That's really not an option for me. And surprisingly, the major drawback was the singlet.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Dude,
It's a lot of drawbacks.
Shorts and it's a huge. I'm like, shorts and a t-shirt I'm cool with, but that singlet.
Who puts it on the first time and goes, I look awesome?
Exactly. It's like, I'm not wearing that. But so he just go to practice. And at the first day in the room, I was hooked. I mean, I remember the first day in the room to this day, and it was just an awesome experience. I loved the individuality of it. I loved the workload, side of it. I love the one-on-one competition, and I've been hooked since then.
I just never thought this would start out with basketball.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
shocked.
come on.
Well, I love it, though.
The irony is, I've always said, Corey was a basketball player in high school, and I always said,
That's
you
why
missed
I'm
your
laughing.
calling.
Yeah.
You should have been a wrestler.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He was a wrestler that played basketball. So
Yeah, that's classic. So,
Yeah.
All right. So you're getting going in high school. Obviously, you were hooked the first day. Could you tell it was was it a passion, just ultra fast? Like that's all you could think about. It was like a burning desire. Like wrestling was it for you.
It was pretty immediate. I think the other thing that I found attractive about the sport was I liked the team side of it as well.
Yeah.
I really liked the team side of it. So in 7th grade I wrestled. I think I was 6-3. I had 9 matches. These days these kids will have 1,000 matches by the time 7th grade rolls around. So that wasn't my beginning. And then on to I wrestled varsity in 8th grade in New York. You could wrestle varsity in 8th grade, so the high school coach saw that I was committed and could help. So and then 8th through 12th wrestled, and then was offered a full scholarship to attend Syracuse.
And a New York guy, that's a pretty big deal, right?
Yeah, it was a big deal. I mean, they had a great program.
Yeah.
My brother was there.
Oh, okay.
He had signed at LSU.
Oh, wow.
My brother initially, then to Tennessee, and then over to Syracuse as programs dropped.
Okay.
The SEC started to put more emphasis on football.
Oh, wow.
They were dropping wrestling programs. So my brother went to Syracuse. I went there with him after 2 years. Felt that there wasn't, I loved the place.
Yeah.
I loved the people, but it just I wanted to be around people that were probably more challenging. in a better environment. So I packed my car and drove out to the University of Iowa and enrolled in school out there, and that's when things really started to really go well.
So this is probably one of my favorite stories Dustin's ever shared with me, is that when you're at Syracuse, it's a home state school.
Yeah.
And you just thought to myself, I want to go be around Dan Gable.
Yeah.
Tell me about that process, because that's a pretty big, life-changing moment. It had to be.
Yeah, it's funny. You were just talking about the people that you surround yourself with, and there's a sense of you've got to get a sense that they're passionate and they're hardworking. They've got this deep desire to be great. And I knew that. I mean, obviously there was no internet at the time.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So it was a dark secret. What's going on out there. All you do, you see them win year after year. And I think for me, it was the only way to really understand what's happening is to be a part of it.
It's awesome.
So it was pack the car. Obviously, I called my dad, and I think something for me that gave me the self-confidence to do that was, I was raised in a home where there was never, you can't do something.
Yeah.
I never heard you couldn't do this or you couldn't do
love
that.
it.
So as a young person, I didn't have those thoughts that really stifle people.
You said, why not?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, why wouldn't I go out there?
Why not me?
Yeah, why not me? So my dad was supportive, financially. We went from no bill to a big bill, but it worked out for me. And
talk about this. So really, at this point, I was like the Soviet training center.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't access it at all.
Exactly.
So what happens when you roll up into town?
Yeah,
what's up, Dan?
that was interesting.
Hey, I'm about to join Iowa.
Plus, you're going from Long Island to the Midwest. I mean, it's a totally different way of life in a sense.
Yeah, there were more people in my hometown than the entire state.
Exactly.
So I got there. I drove through the night. I remember. See, I'd gone to camp there every summer.
Okay.
Okay.
So I knew.
So you'd gotten a little taste of it.
I got a taste of it. Yeah.
Right.
I knew the area. I didn't really know too many people. But I knew the area, and you roll into town. I stayed in a hotel. I got up at 3 o'clock. I figured, let me go to the room. So I go to the wrestling room, and unlike Syracuse, it was school had ended, and the room was packed with people. So I remember sitting in the corner. I was sitting in the corner of the room, and Coach Gable, he's getting practice going. He walks over to me and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Tom, and I'm going to be transferring here." And this is what he said to me.
I can't wait.
This was June. I mean, he was very simple. I mean, he wasn't like this. He said, "Well, you're not going to get any better sitting there."
Yes.
And that was probably one of the few words he spoke to me, and that was June until December of that year.
He just wants to see you work.
He just and I remember the workout vividly because like all of us have, you have crossroads.
Oh yeah.
Right. This was a crossroad moment for me. It was the kind of where the rubber meets the road for me, and it was so I get up, I start warming up, and he said, "Go with these two guys." Their names are Terry and Troy Steiner. Terry is now the head women's coach of the national team, and Troy is now an assistant coach at Oregon State. These are two of the greatest men I've been around. I didn't know at the time what great men they were, but I was going to learn. They're the type of guys that no matter how tired you were, no matter what you were feeling, they really weren't concerned with how you were feeling. They were concerned about improving and reaching a really high level. So I start drilling with them, and I really left Syracuse as someone I thought I was fit.
Yeah.
It's kind of like lifting weight, then you lift with Dustin.
Yeah.
And you realize that maybe you're not so fit.
Yeah.
So
it's always another level.
There's always another level.
Yeah.
So I'm drilling with them, and the pace was so high.
Yeah.
So from the point you scored to the point you got ready to score again, they were in your face instantly. So this went on for like 45 minutes.
And they're trying to break you. You're the new guy in the room.
I'm the new guy in the room. And we're just getting to them. They're just doing what they do.
It's nothing different.
I just happen to be the person that they're. So I'm exhausted after like 50 minutes. I mean, really tired. And then Gable blows the whistle, and he goes, "Time." And I remember thinking, thank God.
He's like, now we're warmed up.
Yeah.
Now it's time to go.
He said, he goes, "Now, okay, you guys ready to go? We're going to wrestle." So we wrestled for about an hour. So I get beat unmercifully.
Yeah.
They were both smaller than me. I was a 50-pounder at the time. They were 34 and 42-pounders.
Yeah.
And I remember grabbing my stuff. And when I tell young kids, I grab my gear. I walk upstairs, Carver Hawkeye Arena. I go in my car. It was a hot summer day in Iowa. The car is warm. I sit in the car, and I just cried, man. I just broke. I was beaten so badly, and I was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
And so mad. so many emotions going. So there's
just
the
over.
process.
It just took you
took
over.
It was overwhelming. You know,
Wow.
you tell everybody you're going to go do something, and then you realize, it sounds good.
Yeah.
Until you got to apply it.
Yeah. Wow.
And now it's time to apply this. And I went back to the hotel. I could have drove back to Syracuse in a second, but back with my brother in a comfort zone that. But I didn't. I went back to the hotel. You get some rest. You go back to the gym, and I to the restroom. I'm thinking if I can just get stronger and better shape, they won't get me tired. I'll be able to beat them. So I lift that night. I get up at 6 o'clock the next morning. I run 3 o'clock the next day. I go to the wrestling room, and you say to the kids, so "What do you think happened?" Those two, they're identical twins, by the way.
Okay.
Identical. I couldn't tell which one was beating the crap any worse apart.
Yeah.
So you go back the next day. They're there, and I wrestle them. Guess what happened that day?
Same thing.
The same thing. Same thing. So it went on for quite a while.
Do you think just going back that second day proved something to them? Like something initially, so many guys could get broken on that first day.
Yeah,
you could have easily drove home.
Yeah. I think anyone that's had any success in life has gone through some difficulties sometimes. Pain is our friend, and people that understand that tend to. I for whatever reason at a young age, I think probably like you realize that you connect rewards to hard work.
Absolutely.
And so for me, fortunately, that's the way I saw things. So I ended up making the team and doing some good things there, and really fortunate that I chose to be around excellent people.
Usually through adversity, there's always a blessing on the other side.
For sure.
That's what I've always realized. If you're cruising, then boom, you hit this wall. And if you just find a way, usually on the other side, there's something pretty special for you. Yeah,
I think a lot of people, when they're going through it, they don't realize that you may be almost at the peak of the hill, and they stop.
Yeah.
On the other side, there's this vast land of vegetation and success, and they stop before they get to that point.
The Lucky Charms guys over there.
That's right.
Well, you think about that beating you took the first day.
Yeah.
And now if you would have gotten in your car, driven back to Long Island, went back to Syracuse. Now I know you. I know Tom Ryan. You still would have been successful. But imagine what a different path your life would have taken.
Yeah, I think like any organization, I think for me, I was one of the youngest head coaches in the country. So you graduate from Iowa, and you're more appealing because of the people, your mentors.
Sure. Of
so
course.
From Hofstra was like, hey, this guy wrestled under Gable. Maybe he knows something. Maybe he's learned something from this mentor.
Yeah. So
it changed my life.
For people that aren't really,
I was gonna say, talk about Dan Gable.
Yeah,
for a
people that
couple
aren't
minutes.
really aware. Dan Gable, in the wrestling world, it's kind of like the Bill Belichick coaching tree. You look at all these pro coaches, in football, and they all coached under Belichick.
He's like Michael Jordan, kind of, right?
Almost
it's kind of the same
mythical
thing.
figure, almost.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Gable in the wrestling world. You look at not just Tom, but wrestling coaches all across the country. They all either wrestled for him or coached with him.
He's just a
I
straight
think
boss.
I think the Big Ten, I think 6 head coaches were Gable cronies.
Wow.
Virginia Tech, Boise State, Oregon State. So, his knowledge is kind of, and his leadership is kind of wide-reaching in the wrestling game.
Talk about as a athlete. So what was some of your best accomplishments on the mat?
I won the Big Tens twice. I was second,
deal.
third at the NCAA's. Really never attained. Honestly, until this year, until this season, as a competitor or a coach, you set these markers that you want to hit.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, until this year, I can't say that I'd ever really attained, the ultimate goal that I had for that particular year.
Wow.
So it was a long, so it was very.
So you set them pretty high, obviously.
Yeah, they're high. Yeah, high as so winning a national championship was probably one of the highlights. I say you've got your wedding day, you've got the birth of your children,
Absolutely.
right? And then you've got moments when you help others attain something really special, and that was this year.
Well, I don't know a ton about wrestling, although I've enjoyed it by learning through Dustin. I stayed up till 1 in the morning, saw you guys on SportsCenter,
cool.
saw this guy on SportsCenter, which is a pretty funny story because he had a shirt on. I'm going to clear it up. He had a shirt on that looked like this.
It was this exact shirt.
And it turned purple when it hit the camera. And so the first thing I thought was, why is Dustin wearing a purple shirt on SportsCenter?
I had people texting me saying, hey, I'm seeing you on SportsCenter, but why did you wear a purple shirt to the NCAA finals? So I'm like, I specifically bought this red shirt because I knew I might be on TV, So
I just had to clear that up real quick. So basically as a competitor, you go into coaching. Did you know you wanted to be a coach by the time you graduated? Was that a clear path for you, or?
No, it's kind of interesting the way it worked. I was, at the Big Tens my senior year.
Mm-hmm.
My thinking was I was going to go into physical therapy.
Oh, okay.
So at the Big Tens, the coach from Indiana approached me
Mm-hmm.
and said, hey, we're looking for an assistant next year. Are you interested? So really, honestly, that's the first time for me
Thought about it.
that I thought about coaching. So, after the season ended, I went and interviewed in Indiana. Chose to make coaching, my life profession. So
That's cool.
yeah.
What you talk about your coaching philosophy, learning under Dan Gable. What stands out from you, or what did you take from him and apply it to, how you coach today?
I'd say a couple things. Probably one of the main things is just his annual training plan. I think for me there was a misconception that you go to Iowa and every day is going to be a day where you're broken down.
Yeah.
And I think it's training really hard. I think hard is really important, and so is smart. And I never felt under Gable that, there's no way you can crush me again today. He was just brilliant at peaking people, and he really got to know his athletes. He also treated everybody the same but also differently, and that's challenging, right? To have a team and treat some people differently but still have a team. And he just really understood what each person needed. And I guess the other thing about him that stood out for me was he was very positive.
Mm-hmm.
He focused on really simple things, but I don't remember hearing anything negative,
Mm-hmm.
Come out of his mouth. And he was more quiet than he was noisy. And when he spoke, it was like, hey, E.F. Hutton here. Remember those commercials?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, he's talking, listen to what he has to say. So I think it was just a very positive environment. The sport is brutal enough.
Yeah.
And I think he focused on rather than making it personal, it was, hey, your high crotch needs work. Your conditioning needs work. It wasn't, hey, you're a pathetic, out of shape bum.
He just pointed out exactly your weak points.
He
but
pointed
he
out
wasn't
your
scared
weak
to tell you.
He wasn't scared to tell you. Yeah.
So
and you respect it.
do you carry that over to your athletes?
Yeah.
You have to.
You have to, yeah.
Because these guys are already coming in studs.
Yeah.
So you got to let them know, like, if you want to be a national champ, like, you got to work on this or that.
Yeah, and we have, obviously at Ohio State right now, the success there is about way more than my vision. I've got an amazing assistant, Lou Roselli, Jay Jaggers, Coach Thatcher, Tommy Rollins was with us.
I love Tommy.
For a while. He's
awesome.
amazing, and he
Yeah.
really he helped us get this thing going. Joe Heskett was with us. Mike Basila was on the staff. Dustin now helping with his strength from an RTC standpoint. I mean, we've, this thing is there's a lot of, Tervel Legnem is there, Reese Humphrey is there.
Yeah, there's some bosses.
I mean, there's just, Logan's now going to join our regional training center. So, I mean, the
talent
excellence,
is
the talent, yeah,
unreal.
is so wide-reaching that, on a daily basis,
Mhm.
a student athlete can be touched by someone who really understands.
Oh man!
So we're just in a good environment.
So talk about, like, from a coaching standpoint, you go in for the interview for Ohio State. It's a Big Ten program. It's obviously probably on the. I know you're an Iowa guy, but still, it's OSU, and you're thinking,
Yeah.
what's the thought process as you're walking in suited up and like, this could be a huge opportunity for me? Like, did you just go in and seize it and we're just ready? Like, because a lot of people have these kind of points in life where they need to just go and knock it out of the park. Is that how it went for you?
Yeah. So it was pretty, interesting. This program, was considered, the sleeping giant, right?
Oh,
it was
yeah,
the
of course.
program that you should win national titles.
Mhm.
It's not like we've done something that shouldn't happen. It should happen. So it starts as, I'm at Hofstra and I get a phone call that, hey, we're interested in taking a look at you. Now the community is small, so I put my feelers out there, and I know pretty clearly that I'm not their number one choice, right?
Okay.
So to all those people out there that have, the thought that, well, I got to be, this and, hey, I was like their fourth or fifth choice, right?
Wow.
So I know where I fall in the big scheme of things. So obviously I let my AD know, I let the president of the university know that, hey, Ohio State's called, I want to go look at the position. So I end up getting an interview, and obviously I planned, diligently for the interview.
Sure.
I was an out-of-state person,
Yeah.
and I wanted to make sure that the main concern for me was that I'm an out-of-state person, and I want to make sure people know that I'm going to raise my family there if they choose me to be. I'm going to have, hopefully 3 kids go there.
You're all in.
I'm all in, I'm all in. So I put a plan together, and we're actually in Indiana when they called to say, hey, we're ready for you to come in.
Mhm.
So I was living in New York, coaching at Hofstra, but I was on vacation with my family in Bloomington, Indiana, which is where my wife's from. So they call me. So I'm like, wow, we've got to get to Columbus tomorrow. So we it's my kids, and we had, I think, 2 dogs. We pack the car, and we head over to Columbus, which is only a 3.5-hour drive.
Yeah.
So we jump in the hotel room, me, the kids, and the dogs, and I'm preparing for this. And my wife says, let's take a walk on campus. So we walk on the oval, and she just like breaks down.
It's awesome too.
She's like crying, and I'm like, the interview's tomorrow. And
Yeah.
at that point, my faith is really starting to grow. So which is a really important part of my life.
Sure.
So I'm like, listen, ultimately I felt, listen, I did everything I can. If God ultimately, if we belong here, we're going to be here.
Yeah.
So the interview was, I knew the 8 people that were going to be on the committee, a few student athletes, trainer, associate AD. I had a packet for each of them. And before I walked in the room, and I prayed and said, God, listen, if you want me here, here's how I'm going to lead this team. Yeah. If you want me here, I'm going to share really how I'm going to lead. So obviously the interview went, thank God it went well. They called me, it's a funny story actually. They called me about 2 weeks later saying, you've got the job. It was a Saturday morning, like 8 o'clock, so I get it. So I'm yelling in the house, hey, we're Buckeyes. And I had a son, my oldest son, was going to go into 9th grade.
Okay.
So it's a tough time to leave. He's got all his buddies.
Yeah, for sure.
He's the man, he's got some good friends. So he's overly not too happy.
Yeah.
So fast forward, we're at our first football game.
Yeah.
Right now we're at the Buckeye game.
Oh yeah.
So we moved.
Nothing like it.
He's 110. So he's standing next to me, and it was Troy Smith throwing a bomb to Ginn. And he's still been a grumpy.
Suddenly the friends at home don't matter anymore.
Exactly. He was so grumpy.
I can get used to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ginn catches the pass. The place goes crazy, and he's cheering.
Yeah.
So it's the first time he'll tell you, I punch him in the rib. I go, hey, easy. Remember, easy. You're not a Buckeye fan yet. So fast forward, he's a senior in the Fisher School of Business. He's studying international business and marketing, and his room's got Buckeyed out. So
that's so cool.
So we're really fortunate, really blessed that Gene. I've said this over and over that Gene. He had a lot of great people in the sport to choose from.
Sure.
And the fact that he chose me, you feel pretty fortunate.
How many years you been there now, Tom?
Just finished 9.
9 years.
9 years, yeah.
You said sleeping giant. The program was a sleeping giant. Obviously, it's not a case of overnight. It's a championship team. But how did you create that journey where this team, this program is capable of competing that? What was the steps that you had to take? Yeah,
I think the one thing that you look at, we're the 12th institution in the history of the sport to win the NCAAs.
Only 12.
So 1921 it started. They think that only 12 schools have ever won it. It's been monopolized by a few.
Yeah, by Dan Gable.
By Dan Gable. he wreaked havoc.
Yeah,
through
for
the
sure.
70s and 80s. It was Oklahoma State early on.
Sure.
Penn State's been strong recently.
Yep.
Minnesota. But you look at the commonality between what it was that it's not reinventing the wheel. It's looking and seeing. Look, history says that if you do these things, you're going to put yourself in a position to win it. So the main thing was the environment, and the environment, the foundation of the environment is just great people. So it was building an Olympic training center. So we now have the best Olympic training center in the country. Right out of Columbus.
It's awesome.
So that's another 7, 8 athletes that are at a really high level, and under NCAA rules, those people can train with your student athletes. So every day someone's getting beat up on.
Huge.
So
Massive.
So that was really the fundamentally it was building an Olympic training center. Hired Lou Roselli, who's a high level coach, freestyle coach. We got Tommy Rollins to stay and train there and coach with us. Joe Heskett. They were both elite athletes at the time. So kind of instantly we had a somewhat of a training program. The next phase is you need funding to pay these guys to stay and train, so they don't have to have a full-time job, and they can train full-time. So then it's just building relationships in the community and getting people to believe in your vision. Our budget went from $50,000 a year to $400,000 a year. I mean, so that's a significant amount of funding that we need. So we're at that point now. That's been a foundation, the right people, and and then it was keeping the best home. And when the environment's right, people are attracted to it. You don't need to, sell much. It's just this is what we have. You want to be part of it.
Talk about the environment, D, because you're in it all the time.
That's one of the things that stands out. I can remember the first time meeting you down at Steelwood, maybe 2.5 years ago, whenever it was, when I first started becoming involved with the regional training center there. And at this point, I'm already a Tom Ryan fan, but I hadn't met you. And I remember you came in and we talked for a second. I was like, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Dust. I'm working with Reese Humphrey and Angel Escobedo and some of the athletes. And you said, yeah. You said, I'm aware of you, and I like that you take these guys to deep water. And right now he said, I was like, all right, me and this guy are getting along good.
Yeah,
and,
right.
And I remember you looked at me and you said, we need to build a culture of brutality in this room. You know, he said,
I love it.
You know, so that's one of the biggest things I've noticed. You know, I've noticed a change since I've been there. The culture has just gotten more and more serious where, you know, even when it's kind of a standard of excellence that these guys have to hold themselves to,
Sure.
and the coaches are a part of that. And that there's no like, okay, let's get in shape for the season now. It's, you know, there needs to be a standard of hard work. You know,
All
yesterday
year.
I go in for the lift yesterday, and Nathan Tomasello rolls up to Steelwood, not in his car. He ran there.
Yeah.
You know, and
He's
this
a boss.
You know, and that's why he was a national champion as a freshman. You know, he decided for whatever reason, because it was nice out, hey, I'm going to run to the lift today instead of drive there. So that's kind of the culture of, you know, hard work and excellence, you know.
Now you have somebody other than Logan too, which we'll talk about some of the guys that now you have Tomasello, you got Kyle, it's done great. You got a bunch of guys done great. Now there's a standard.
Yeah.
And now you're national champs too, so nobody wants to have anybody else take that from you.
Yeah,
so
no,
now
for
there's a high standard. Talk about
They got to live up to that.
Yeah. So a couple things I always ask, no matter who the guest is in whatever their arena. So tell me about when you walk into a big match against Iowa at St. John's.
Yeah.
What's the feeling like? I see you pacing. I've only been to a couple, but I was like, where's Tom at, Dustin? He's like, oh, he's over there. He's pacing. But talk about the intensity, the environment. You're at Ohio State. The new mat looks amazing. Like, talk about just like when you walk onto the floor and it's a big match there. What's kind of either going through your mind or what's it feel like?
Yeah, I think there's two important ingredients to that. The first one is the grandness of it all. So it is grand. You know, you're talking about 15,000 people. You're talking about
close environment.
Close
it's tight
environment.
too. I love it.
It's the highest level of competition. It matters to a lot of people nationally. It matters to a lot of people in Buckeye Nation. It matters to your family. It matters. It's important.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the aerial view, and then you break it down to the simplicity of how grateful.
Yeah.
You know, so you try to constantly get these young guys to think that, you know, picture the first day you put on a singlet.
Yeah.
You know, and someone said, hey, you're going to be wrestling in Carver Hawkeye Arena in front of 15,000 people.
So cool.
On the Big Ten Network. You know, I mean, how blessed are you? You know, what would you have said in that moment as a fifth grader, a fourth grader, a third grader,
it's a great takeaway.
a second grader? You know, what would you have said? So don't let that slip away.
Yeah.
You know, at that moment, you would have said, oh, yeah, I can't wait.
Of course.
So and then
you would have thought I would have gave anything to do that.
anything to be there. And now that you're here, now that you're in that moment, be grateful. You know, so the saying we say a lot is you can't be grateful and fearful in the same moment.
No.
And
I love that.
You know, so just,
that's going to end up on a poster.
Yeah, just how grateful. You know how really
something else.
So you try to break it down, you know, so that the nerves and all the things that can consume you don't consume you.
Can the gratefulness, you think, break down the nerves for guys?
I really do.
Yeah, I like
think,
that.
Yeah,
that's a
grateful.
cool thing.
I'm just so grateful, and my objective is to just. My objective out there is to give a godly performance.
Yeah.
You know, whether I win by 50, whether I get a fall, whether I lose by 1, whatever it is.
Yeah.
This is going to be a godly effort. This is going to be an effort that you know, that I'm capable of giving. So.
Wow. One of the other things I've heard you say before along those lines, I heard you tell the athletes at the end of practice one time. You said, you know, when it gets hard out there, when it's tough and when it hurts, think of someone other than yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, don't think about how you feel. Think about not just Buckeye Nation, but your parents that have put you in this situation, your coaches, the people that are depending on you. Think of someone other than yourself.
Yeah, and I think the guys that are just unbelievably unique for us and at the highest level in the sport. I mean, they've got, like you guys in building MusclePharm, there's a burning desire.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this
I can't
ache.
stop it.
You can't stop.
No.
No, there's this ache. You call it the ache, right? So these guys ache really badly.
Yeah.
And when it does get tough, besides the wanting to win, it's, think about somebody else as well.
There's some great takeaways there.
These are all attributes that you're looking for when you're recruiting someone or bringing someone to Ohio State. So when you're out there, knowing that it takes a unique individual just to wrestle, at this level in college, what are you looking for in a person, in a kid when you're going out there and talking to them and trying to find future Buckeyes?
Yeah, it's I think that so many parents, we've got these huge dreams for our kids. They're going to be the next superstar, and you get the question so often. I've said this often. you get the question, does my son, my daughter, do they have what it takes? You've been coaching for 23 years. What do you?
I'd be dodging that question like crazy.
Right. No, it's a tough one.
It's a real tough one,
It's a tough
man.
one. So I read this and I've used it since. I've read this and so they say, does my kid have what it takes? And the answer is pretty simple. And I think we all the answer is to throw back a question, and the question is, how much are they willing to suffer?
Yeah, I like it.
How much are they willing to suffer? I don't know anybody that's attained anything without suffering. Mm-hmm. And it's a joyful suffering, but it's a suffering. It's you've ran 6 miles, you've got 5 to go. You've lifted Monday, Wednesday morning, Friday mornings here, and you're going to get tortured again. And it's this willingness to continue to push yourself at a level that's really uncomfortable. And the ones that do in our program and in any probably walk of life, they're wildly successful.
Consistently uncomfortable.
You
got to put yourself in the deep water.
In the deep
all
water.
the time.
Stay there.
Yeah.
You got to find out who can swim and who can't.
Yeah.
It's one of the most, just the life of a college wrestler. It has to be one of the most unique experiences for a college student.
Josh lived with some wrestlers when he went to college.
When I was in college at Ashland University, up here, and just seeing, out of all but 2 months of the year, these guys were absolutely focused and locked in on.
And miserable, probably, too.
And miserable on, they had to be a certain weight, they had to do this, they had to do that, and just it's so out of the norm from a typical college student. I mean, just they're living responsibility as an adult, 18 through 22-year-old. It's
so if I'm
totally unique.
If I'm in 10th grade right now and I'm listening to this podcast and I'm winning a lot of wrestling matches, I feel like I got what it takes. What would be like maybe 2 takeaways you could tell that kid that's listening right now to do to get himself prepared potentially for the next level?
I think you share with them the standard, the standard of, hey, you're a 10th grader. Here's looking at history, this is an average 3K time for someone that's at a high level.
So there's benchmarks.
Just some benchmarks.
Okay.
You share some benchmarks with them. You share with them the reality that, ultimately for me, from a recruiting standpoint, it's building, right? It's all relationship.
Yeah.
It's all about building relationships. So it's not so much, hey, we're going to lead you to 4 national titles, we're going to lead you to Olympic gold medal. It's, hey, when you're done here, you're gonna have somebody that's gonna have your back.
Yeah.
I want to be at your wedding. I want to be there when you have your first kid. It's more relationship based things than wins and losses.
That's so cool. Talk about why was this year so. I know there's probably been a lot of special years and close calls over the 8 or 9 years, but why was this year the year to win the national? And just so you guys, if you don't know, there's a 64-year drought of the Big Ten title. Yeah. And how many years? We've never won a national title at Ohio State. It's the first one in, 90 years?
93 years.
So why was this the year that you was on SportsCenter?
We were. It's funny. It's funny. We, I was it 2008 or 2009? We had taken a pretty good lead in the team for the team trophy at the NCAA's, and I remember I was under the bleacher, and John Smith came up to me and said, "Congrats." He congratulated me like we won, and I said, "This thing's far from over."
Yeah.
He goes, "You're gonna need. They'll need a miracle to pull this out."
In
for
08.
Iowa to win, and they ended up getting 3 forfeits, which was 6 points. So they got some miracles. The unbelievable happened.
Yeah,
right. The unthinkable happened, and it was 8 or 9. I think it was 9. So the unthinkable happens, and for me, reflecting on it, it just. You reflect on it and you say it just wasn't our time.
One time, yeah.
We did everything we could to win it. This year was our time. We had a group of really hungry freshmen.
Sure.
We had
some studs.
Some total studs.
Yeah.
I'd like to say
no matter what, you got to have the athletes.
Yeah.
So. I mean, I think John Wooden coached for 25 years before he won a title.
Yeah.
So I'd like to say that you've got this coaching genius sitting on this chair. The reality is that's not the facts.
Yeah.
Right. The facts are that. We have some amazing people, some men that just have set really high goals. Nathan Tomasello is an amazing example.
That kid's just a
Total
grinder,
beast.
man, beast. It just you can see it from a mile away. He can't even shut it down.
No,
he's
can't.
a boss.
No, and we're trying to get him to calm down.
I don't know. It's hard to turn that off. Yeah,
it is.
No, he has calmed down a little bit.
Has he?
I laughed the other day. It was the first time ever. in the last 2 years, I saw him actually kind of talking smack to one of the other guys during a workout. Usually he's just so business, he can't even take his mind outside of the task at hand.
But he was so focused on being a national champ as a freshman, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, you could see it.
And
that's what I love, the intensity of wrestling. I think that's why Dustin said I miss my calling, because I'm like that in the weight room too. And the griminess, I just can't get enough of it. And that dude is like the epitome of it for sure.
That's funny, yeah.
Talk about so you had some adversity, obviously, in Kyle's match. I mean, he was that match, I couldn't, what happened was crazy. But now he's rebounded and just killing it on a world level.
Yeah,
and
amazing guy.
I love it. And he's a freak too.
There's so many storylines in winning it this year.
Yeah.
And obviously Kyle's one of them. Bo Jordan.
Well,
so Bo has an injury in December that was potentially season-ending.
Sure.
We choose to not get the surgery and have him fight through the season. He takes a relatively easy third place at the national tournament. We had some losses.
Injured at third.
Yeah, he's just
a freak stud. Dustin tells me all the time how much of a freak he is.
He's a freak show.
Yeah.
And then Nate, obviously the other freshman, and then Kyle, who commits to us, on New Year's Day of his junior. He calls me at 9 a.m. and says, "Hey, I just want to let you know that I want to get your New Year started right. I'm going to be a Buckeye."
That's awesome.
And then goes to Olympic Training Center. Forgoes his senior year in high school.
Wow.
You're finally the senior in high school.
He didn't even care.
All the things that you look forward to as a senior.
Yeah.
And he was focused. He knew that we needed him to wrestle as a freshman.
Wow.
He knew
I
he
didn't
wanted
even know that.
Yeah, he wanted to wrestle. So he didn't wrestle in high school as a senior. He went to the training center.
So he's
went
young.
to Cuba. Went to Russia. He's 19. He's 19 right now. He's 19-year-old. So
wow.
he goes to the training center. Lives in a little dorm.
Yeah.
Instead of being at home with his family, whatnot. Helps us win a national title. It has a heartbreaking loss.
Yeah.
This is what he said to about 500 fans right after the national finals. We did a social.
Mm-hmm.
And he got time to go take a shower. He comes to the social. None of our athletes knew they were going to speak.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be just really emotional and not let. So Kyle's the first one. I call Kyle up. He stands up on this kind of podium and he says to the people, "I'm devastated."
Yeah.
He first says, "Thanks for coming."
Yeah.
I'm devastated. My goal was to win 4 national titles.
Yeah.
And that's not possible now. But if losing a wrestling match is the worst thing that ever happens in my life, I lived a blessed life. And the people just like, what a perspective.
19,
for 19.
Dude, there's no way I would have thought that when I was 19. I would like to think that I would, but there's no way in hell.
You might have punched the wall.
Yeah, I would have definitely punched the wall.
or at least where's that pity party?
Yeah.
So it wasn't about him, but the team won the title.
The team won. The next night, someone sent a picture. Someone sent a picture to me. He's lifting. He goes on to beat the reigning Olympic champion 3 times in a row. He's now going to represent.
How mature is that?
He's 3.93 GPA. It does everything right, and it really stems at home.
That's
at home.
Awesome.
You see all these guys. His older brothers at West Point just graduated. His younger brother's going to Naval Academy.
Wow.
He chose Ohio State, and there's this sense of more than winning.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sense of you do the right thing. It's always been in their home. The emphasis, and the same thing with Logan Steiber. You see a lot of it in these great ones. They're never at home put on this pedestal because of the success they have as an athlete. It's always you're a human being, you're a man, and you're expected
keep them grounded.
You keep them grounded to live like one. So
yesterday Kyle was he was leaving Steelwood, and Coach Jaggers asked him, "Hey, have you seen?" I don't know, he asked some TV show or something. I don't watch TV either. So, and Kyle said, "No, I haven't seen that." Jaggers says, "You don't watch it?" He goes, "No, I don't watch TV." Jaggers goes, "Well, Kyle, what do you do when you're home and you're by yourself?" He goes, "I watch wrestling." He said,
"Duh, Coach."
He said, "I try." He said, "I try to watch more wrestling technique than quarterbacks watch film."
Yeah, so he's prepared like none other.
And he's a 19-year-old kid.
I can't wait to have him on here. I'm excited.
Yeah, he's really the way his mind. You can tell that he's.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk. Go ahead, Josh.
Well, when you see just a group of individuals like that, wrestling's so individual yet it's so team. When you see them come together and perform as a team, come together as a team, kind of lean on each other and lead to that moment. How special is that, just to see that process?
Yeah, it's really special. There's a guy that I meet with that really helps me out quite a bit. His name is Chet Scott. He owns a company called Built to Lead, and he leads CEOs, CFOs, and so I met him through like you meet people, right, Corey? It's through the early morning. This guy's willing to suffer. He must have. There's something about him that's appealing to me.
Sure.
He understands hard work. So I got to know him through an early morning workout group.
Love it.
And so then I welcomed him into the family the same way Dustin.
Yep.
I mean, Dustin was busting his butt in the wrestling room for a year or so before we ever were like, hey,
Anything
this guy's earned my respect by what.
Absolutely.
Nothing he says. I haven't really talked to him that much, but
It's
I see
all
him.
action.
Oh, it's all action.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
so,
people can say whatever they want, but they can't
yeah,
lie
they
about
can't
their
lie
habits.
About their habits. Yeah.
Right.
So I learned, this past year with Chet, that one of the things that we do with the team now is, so we lose to Virginia Tech in a dual meet.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of wanted to copy football. I thought,
Yeah, I guess so, right?
They lose the first game.
Not a bad
to
thing to
Tech,
copy this year.
And then we lost to Tech too, our first. So
That's
there were some
hilarious.
similarities there. We didn't have to put our third string athlete in there.
Yeah.
We're not as cool as Urban.
You didn't
from
have
that
to put
standpoint.
Dustin in a singlet.
Yeah,
to try
no,
to go.
Oh man, I hope not.
No, he can lift. He'd fight hard though. So so one of the things that we did from a team standpoint that was different than the past was we wrote. So we lose to Virginia Tech, and normally it would be a coach saying, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, you did that well, but us kind of influencing their thoughts. And this year, whether we win or lose, the athletes have to write. To send an email, just write down their thoughts.
I love it.
What happened in the match? What were you thinking? What was it from a team perspective? When you gave up the winning, or when you get the losing takedown or the winning takedown, what were your thoughts? So and then we lost at Tech. We jump in the bus. We drive to Virginia, which is maybe a 2-hour drive, I think, over the mountain. Mm-hmm. We get to Virginia. We meet in a hotel room, and it was okay. Just share your experience. What happened in the duel? What can you do better? And I think getting people to think,
that's awesome.
And assess using their own mind rather than me spewing my thoughts into their brains. That went a long way for us this year. I think it really galvanized us as a team.
Did they talk
amongst each other?
Open,
Honest, real.
Very cool.
Hey,
That's super
so
real.
it was real. And I think there's not enough realness, when it comes to some organizations. So anyway, it was.
I like this point. So
Yeah.
obviously, you have to be involved in personal development on a daily basis
Yeah.
of some sort. A lot of people don't realize how important that is. That they have to train their mind and as their body. So I'm a proponent of both. I enjoy getting up early. I enjoy daily reading or listening to stuff like this, whatever it is that can make me better. Do you believe that that's been a huge part, overall, for you to just stay involved in that type of stuff, or do you make a conscious effort daily for that type of training?
Yeah, it's interesting. We've learned about the Spartans, and the Spartans, they were animals, obviously, as warriors. But you look at history, and history says that the Spartans, before these kids, they were taken from their home at 9, 10. Mm-hmm. I mean, the boys you're gone. You have a boy. I mean, they're gone. And the first years of their training was all mental development. And teaching them how to think the right way. And understand that they're the landlord of their mind.
Yeah.
When that you welcome thoughts, you can evict thoughts, and that's such a critical side of any competitor. So powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the X factor. So the guys that think the right way and understand, hey, it's okay to have a negative thought, but it's not okay to allow it to fester in your brain.
Push it out.
You got to push it out. So that's critical part. And I think connection. To your point of earning trust. Earning trust is 3 components to it, and the biggest component is connection. Really connecting with them. Hey, where are you? Really becoming someone that they can rely on. It's not just so much, hey, he loves me when I win, and when I lose, he doesn't not really concerned that my mother's ill, or we've got some financial issues at home, or I'm having girlfriend issues, or school's hard. You really want to have that connection with them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
We got Josh.
So
when you this is one thing I always wanted to know. You talked about, and I've seen stuff with, when Tressel won the national title, when Urban won the national title. It's, a major accomplishment. I mean, the stuff you dream about. And
you're going to Disneyland.
Yeah, you're going to Disneyland. And the next day, people are asking, well, what about a repeat? And then the next day you're like, well, I got to get back on the recruiting trail. Yeah. I mean, how are these guys able to enjoy it? Is when is that moment? Or if I win a national title, I want to take a month and just savor in it. So how are you able to just enjoy that, or how can you?
Yeah. I think in life you balance. So I say there's numerous train tracks running simultaneously in life. Yeah. Train track 1, you just won the nationals. Train track 2, your daughter's got to get ready for school.
Yeah.
Train track 3, train track 4, you're trying to celebrate the nationals. So I think they run simultaneously. I can tell you for me, we win the nationals, we get in our bus, we drive home to Columbus from St. Louis, and this is true. I had the trophy sitting next to me in my seat of my car. Mm-hmm. I brought it home with me that day. So I get home, I put it on the counter, and this is to the best of my recollection. I put it on the counter, and when we had left for St. Louis, there was a lot of snow on the ground.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When we returned from St. Louis, there was no snow on the ground. So I had not really been outside in my yard for a while. It was through the winter. Mm-hmm. It's starting to warm up, and we have 3 dogs.
Okay.
Right? So
I know where this is going.
Listen, this is true, man. This is life. It's just life.
Yeah.
You're on a high one moment, and then you're back to, what has got you grounded? Really, who are you? That was a great weekend. It doesn't necessarily define you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I put the trophy on the counter. I go to let the dogs outside. They won't go out. So I walk outside, and I see that, obviously the snow's gone. So there was like 5 months of winter. There's 3 dogs. That's a lot of days.
Yeah.
2 labs and a little one. There's a lot of stuff in the yard.
Yeah, get your shovel out.
So I literally
shit.
changed my sneakers. I go outside, and I filled up 3 giant garage bags
full of poop.
And that was how
Keep it in perspective. That's how you celebrate it.
That was my celebration. I'm like,
That's
you know
awesome.
what, man? I was thinking to myself, I bet Urban doesn't have to do this.
But that's the difference between being a wrestler and being a football player, right?
Yeah, right.
The wrestler still has to go home and shovel dog poop no matter
He's
what.
probably got a yard guy. But, I don't.
That's classic.
Yeah,
Where do you
they can
think?
help out.
So obviously you're excited for the next season, but overall, wrestling seems like it's hitting a good kind of peak. You got the Rumble in the Garden. You got some just like unique things going on.
We get the World Championships here in the U.S. for the
What's
first
the
time
thing
in
they
a
do
long time.
outside that we sponsor?
It's
the thing. It's out at Times Square.
You guys sponsor? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
You guys,
that kind of stuff.
Beat
Like
the streets.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a
the
bunch of
amazing
just
event
cool
you
things going
sponsor,
on that like I don't even
Yeah.
remember were
Yeah.
even happening. So it seems
Yeah.
like the sports kind of and the UFC I think's helped a little bit
I
because
think
then
it
there's a lot
has.
of guys that can go on after that. But do you feel like it's at an all-time high?
I
in
do.
general?
I do. I feel like we're in a really good place. I think one of the concerns right now is just with the cost of attendance.
Yep.
And then the O'Bannon case and paying student athletes for their name and likeness.
Sure.
So there's some things that wrestling we have to galvanize now.
Yeah.
Because at some point a department has so many funds, and now you've got to pay $500,000 a year perhaps in name and likeness, and for extra meals for football and basketball, and we've got to really have a plan that can help the sport grow. I mean, there's 10,000 high schools around the country that have wrestling. It's the 6th largest participation sport in the country. It's changed a lot of lives. It's a sport that, Gable said America needs wrestling. I really believe that. I was a rambunctious kid.
Yep.
I had a lot of energy, and I could have, if there was no wrestling, I could have veered off into another direction. So you think about the way it's impacted. I'm just one of hundreds of thousands that have been impacted by the sport. So it's a great time to be in wrestling. Where Big Ten Network has helped tremendously.
Yeah.
As you say, MMA. Some of these stars. Weidman
Big-time
actually wrestled
USA
for me at
guy.
Hofstra,
That's
and now
cool.
he's a
star.
He's a star, and he's talking about wrestling and his roots. So
Got a USA Wrestling tattoo, I think.
Yeah, he's a tattoo.
He's
He's a 2-time All-American at Hofstra.
I think in general, I always, even though I wasn't a wrestler, I love the environment. Like society's soft in general.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You need so Gable's right. You need wrestling.
Right.
I think you need wrestling in football
We
to
spe-
keep
we
some
people
type
out
of
for sure.
You know,
Yeah.
right.
I didn't start wrestling until high school, so I was kind of late to the game. But I always say wrestling is what turned me into a man. It's what toughened me up. You know, and I think, so really that's one of the great things about the sport. Whether you're talking about me or whether you're talking about one of the sport's all-time greats like Logan Steiber, you don't have to be Logan Steiber. You can still be Dustin Myers, and the sport can still really have a big impact on who you are as a person and who you become as a man.
Yeah, the discipline can mold you. You know what? We didn't talk about Logan, but we got to.
Yeah.
So talk about there's 4 guys in the history of the NCAA that have won 4 national titles. So individual titles. So talk about having. I mean, we don't want to blow his head up too much, but he is great. There's no doubt.
Yes, he's special.
And I watched, came to the match and watched him, and he beat the kid 15-0.
In the Big Ten finals of that?
Yeah, and it looked like he was wrestling against like an 8th grader.
He's
and
a
it's
Jedi.
Like,
He's a ninja.
yeah, he's like a ninja, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, but the way he carries himself is so. I feel like he's not like overly arrogant.
Yeah.
Like he's just a
Well,
a pretty interesting character.
I remember after you met him, and then before you got to see his match, you said, okay, because you don't know as much about the ins and outs of wrestling, and you said, okay, tell me, what makes Logan so special. I said, you're going to see here in a minute, because he's going to make a really good athlete.
I really didn't know.
He's going to make a really good athlete look like they've never wrestled before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He
Yeah.
doesn't look like this intimidating character that's going to.
Sure.
So his foundation is incredible at home.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of love at home.
Sure.
Tremendous.
A lot of support.
Let's love and support. So his identity isn't necessarily in winning.
Gotcha.
His identity is in he's got this foundation that I'm in a great environment. He grew up in an intense environment. I mean, from a young age. I mean, there's a family that didn't take vacations.
Yeah.
And the vacation was to Fargo, North Dakota. To wrestle.
Work.
It was work.
Yeah.
So his family couldn't afford to do but they could afford to put their kids in the best situation.
So cool.
So he goes on to be, as you said, one of 4 ever. And I made this statement because I think people. You always try to make it something they can digest.
Yeah.
When you say something. So I said more people have walked on the moon.
I heard you. I saw you tweet that.
Then have won 4 national titles. And the funny thing is, after,
that's ridiculous, everybody.
Yeah. So listen, this is really funny, Corey. This is really funny. So after nationals, I'm at the bank.
Yeah.
And I'm at the bank, and I have an Ohio State wrestling shirt on. And he goes, you hear about this guy? He doesn't know who I am. So
did you hear about Logan Steiber?
He goes, you hear about this guy, Logan?
I heard a few things.
He goes, this is really funny. And he goes, because I'm just happy that that saying stuck. I'm more proud of that. So he goes, did you hear about this guy, Steiber, that won 4 times? I go, yeah, I have. And he goes,
I love it.
He goes,
I'm aware.
He goes, Corey, he goes, do you realize that more people have walked on the moon?
He recites your line.
He recites my line.
He said it back to you.
I'm
Winning right there.
I'm like, it's amazing. Yeah, this kid's really special. Wow. So
unbelievable.
He's been just, obviously, his high school wrestling team had never won the state championships, right?
Yeah.
In fact, that school, Monroeville, had only won 1 state title ever in any sport.
Sure.
And it was basketball.
Okay.
And his dad was actually one of the players on the team.
Oh, wow.
So his dad helped the team win a basketball championship. Fast forward, 20-something years later, Logan led that high school team to a state championship.
So cool.
He also, ironically, right, he leads Ohio State
to
their first ever NCAA championship. So pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff. He's just a great leader, great example, humble as you could tell.
Yeah, no, very humble. That's why when Dustin was like, you're going to see it in a few minutes when he makes a national ranked guy look like he doesn't wrestle.
Yeah, I think I can't remember what the Iowa kid was. He might have been like 5th or 6th.
Yeah, I was at the Iowa
time.
match.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like top 10 kids, and he beats him 15-0 and walks off, and then Urban's like, okay, I saw the show. I'm
and
out
he's
of here.
hilarious. He's got a great personality. The first time I met him, I was doing a clinic. Well, I'd watched him at Ironman. I'm like, oh my gosh! I mean, this kid's a freak show. We just got to have him.
Yeah.
I can't lose him. So he's only a sophomore, though, or a freshman. So later that summer, I'm doing a clinic. He was at it. So he was probably 110 pounds sopping wet. I'm like probably 165.
Yeah.
So I'm working out with him. So let's wrestle. So we start wrestling, and literally he's just a little squirt. You know? So he hits me with a double leg. He hits low, which is a gift. He hits low. A honed gift. He hits low, and then he drives through you, which you don't do so many times. So he hits him, and he runs through me, and he takes me down. So we keep wrestling. After the go, I sit on the edge of the mat with him, and obviously I'm trying to connect with him. I want to build a relationship with him because I want him. So I go, hey, Logan, that was a heck of a shot you hit on me. So he looks at me with a straight face, and he goes, Coach, that only works on old people.
Yes.
I'm like, I love this kid. I love this guy. He's got a sense of humor.
He wasn't even trying.
He just took down the Ohio State head coach and then talked shit to him.
Right.
I love it.
So I tell that story because I think that story just typifies the way he's intense as heck when he needs to be.
Sure.
So he understands this. Another thing we talk about, courage and calm. When you shake hands to wrestle, you need courage.
Yeah.
When you're not shaking hands, you're calm, you're relaxed, you're enjoying life.
And he is.
And he is. He really enjoys his life.
It's amazing how many people saw that. So not only did you guys win the national title and it was a big deal. But the fact that Logan won his 4th at the same time created so much more exposure for the program.
Right.
And I was so excited. With football already winning, obviously that didn't hurt either. But
Right.
to get you guys that prime time spot, and look, I'm all about the TV time, so I pay attention to everything with the marketing we've done with the UFC and all these things over the years and Tiger. And so it's like I saw that, and I was just watching. One, I was so proud of Dustin too, but I was like sitting there thinking, this is enormous for the program and for the sport.
Well, it just kind of shows where the program is now. It's not just to have two things like that happen in the same year. It's huge for Ohio State, and it just shows that what Tom has done in developing the program and taking it from a sleeping giant to we're one of the big boys now.
Yeah, no, it was a perfect storm, right? You've got, like
Absolutely.
you said, you've got Logan winning 4. You've got the university winning their first ever.
Yeah.
And it's Ohio State.
It's cool to be at Ohio State right now.
Those 3 pieces, if it was not another program, maybe you don't get prime time like that. No. Winning 4. I mean, Dake won 4 the year before. I don't think they went right live to.
I have
Center.
no clue who he is.
Yeah,
I know he's really good. I know now.
Right, but he wrestled at,
sure.
It's a great institution, Cornell, but Ohio State has this, it just magnifies everything when it happens at a place like Ohio State.
In a sport like this, you need guys that don't follow it to know who you are and who Logan is, and that's what I feel like that helped do.
Brings in the casual.
You're right.
Absolutely, because that's what helps it grow overall.
You're right. Yeah.
So it's I'll tell you what, if there's anybody that's listening, you've had a lot of success in your life, Tom. If there's 2 or 3 takeaways that you could just let them leave with from this podcast, what would you do? Either it's consistency, it's schedule, it's whatever it may be, to say, I walked away with this podcast, and this is things I can put into my life to help me be more successful.
Yeah, so I would say there's one takeaway for me that we haven't necessarily I think we've touched on it, but for me it would be just the reality that there's one guarantee in life, and that guarantee is that you won't be here forever.
Yeah.
That we're all going to die at some point, and not to make it dark, and it's not a dark thing. It's
real though.
You know the end.
Yeah.
You know the end. So what are you going to do when you're here? What difference are you going to make?
Sure.
And for me, there was tragedy in my life way beyond losing a wrestling match or my team not attaining the things they want. For me, it was the loss of a 5-year-old who was healthy, at the dinner table that really brought me to the reality of why am I here? Where am I going? What is this life thing all about? And you come for me. There's only 2 options, right? Option 1. So if Dustin and I wrestled right now for an hour, and Dustin went home and told us,
would you beat him?
What?
Yes.
I think I would have to get him tired first.
All right. Go ahead.
So if we wrestle for an hour, right, and Dustin goes home and tells his wife, "Hey, I wrestled Coach Ryan. I scored 100 points on him. He scored none on me."
Yeah.
And I go home and tell my wife, "Hey, hon, listen, I wrestled Dustin. He can do 400 pull-ups.
Yeah.
But I beat him 100 to nothing."
Yeah.
Well, what's happening, right? It's clearly someone's lying.
Yeah.
In the same instant, in the same workout, I couldn't score 100 and him score none, or him score 100 on me and me score 0. So the bottom line, there's 2 options.
Yeah.
So the takeaway for me always when I speak and share, it's listen, we each are given the gift to choose. Option 1 is you're here by accident.
Yeah.
You're on planet Earth because of a random explosion, and through years and years of evolution, you have human beings that can do the things they do. That's option 1. Option 2 is there's a God.
Yeah.
There's a God that loves you. They both can't be true.
Yeah.
The same scenario as Dustin and I wrestling. One is true.
Yeah.
One is false. And the gift of life is that we get to choose.
Yeah.
So the main focus for me, for anybody listening, would be take a step back and assess and think about those 2 things.
Yeah.
And that single choice, to some degree, will determine a lot of the way you do things in your life.
Wow.
So that's probably one of the big takeaway, and then of course suffer.
Yeah, suffer and just learn to like it.
Learn to like it. I mean, find value in it. You get cut from the team. Your boyfriend breaks up with you. Your girlfriend breaks up with you. You're struggling financially. Listen, just stay the course. There's a way through it.
There's a way you can grow through it.
There's a way you can grow through it. You don't turn to drugs. You don't turn to doing anything that is gonna cause more trouble. So.
That's great, Coach.
Oh, that's it, man.
I appreciate you being so open and honest with me, man. It was great having you.
Yeah, great.
So
congrats on all your success, man.
Thanks,
Amazing.
man. I'm trying real hard, but
Yeah.
you know what? Having guys like you on here just makes all of us be more motivated.
For
It's
sure.
pretty exciting.
Yep.
Thanks, man.
So if you're listening right now, go to iTunes, give us a 5-star rating. Make sure you go to MusclePharm.com and sign up for our newsletter. We are out.